Before you get hyped about the latest iPhone 18 leaks, take a breath. Because right now, the internet is acting like the iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max are already finished products. A dramatically smaller dynamic island, record-breaking. Brightness, Samsung's new LTPO Plus panels, a 2nm A20 Pro chip, Apple's own C-Series modem, and almost invisible under-display Face ID. It sounds incredible. It also sounds exactly like the kind of story the leak ecosystem loves to tell. Unprecedented, groundbreaking, technological milestone. But when you look closely at these iPhone 18 leaks, a very different picture starts to emerge. One that's a lot more conservative, a lot less certain, and a lot more in line with how Apple actually works. So let's break down why you should be extremely skeptical of these reports about a redesigned dynamic island on iPhone 18 Pro brighter than ever iPhone 18 and iPhone 18 Pro Max displays Samsung's LTPO Plus tech and crazy efficiency gains a 2nm A20 Pro chip with an Apple C-Series modem near invisible under-display Face ID. And why, if you care about real-world performance and long-term reliability, that might actually be a good thing. First, the headline everyone's talking about. The Dynamic Island. One leak claims the Dynamic Island cutout on iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max will shrink from about 20.76mm to 13.49mm, roughly a 35% reduction in width. On paper, that sounds huge. Cue the comments. You've got the new Pro iPhone. I can tell by the smaller pill. But here's what nobody mentions. Apple doesn't redesign the front of the iPhone just because it can. It redesigns it when it has to. Look at the notch. It survived from iPhone X all the way through multiple generations. Why? Because Face ID, the front camera, and all the sensors needed that space. When Apple finally moved to the Dynamic Island, they turned a hardware limitation into a software feature. Animations, live activities, system alerts, and built whole interaction model around it. That's not the kind of thing you casually tweak every other year. Shrinking the Dynamic Island by 35% isn't a simple cosmetic decision. It means re-engineering the Face ID hardware stack, rearranging or hiding components like the flood illuminator under the display, redesigning how iOS uses that space visually, ensuring gesture behavior, tap targets, and animations still feel natural. That's before we talk about manufacturing, pushing more components under the display. Especially something as sensitive as Face ID's flood illuminator is incredibly difficult. Under-display cameras from other brands already show the problem. Reduced image quality, weird color shift, visible patches in certain light, and lower yield rates in factories. So when a leak simply says, Dynamic Island will be 35% smaller on iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max, without touching any of that complexity, you should be skeptical. Could Apple eventually shrink the Dynamic Island? Absolutely not. Will it do it the moment someone tweets a measurement? That's far less likely. Apple has shown over and over again that it moves slowly when it comes to core, user-facing hardware like Face ID. It prioritizes stability, security, and consistency over visual novelty. Until under-display tech can deliver zero compromise, Apple has every reason to keep its current, proven layout. Next up, the iPhone 18 display brightness hype. One leaker claims that Bo, a major Chinese display supplier, has little hope of making panels for the iPhone 18 because Apple's brightness requirements for the next generation are unprecedentedly high. That's being spun as proof that iPhone 18 will be dramatically brighter than iPhone 17. iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max will also get big brightness bumps. Samsung's LTPO Plus panel on the 18 Pro Max will deliver both higher brightness and better efficiency. Sounds great, but let's ask the obvious question. Do you actually need more brightness? The current generation already pushes around 1000 nits typical brightness, around 1600 nits peak for HD all around. 3,000 nits peak outdoors. That's already more than enough for most real-world usage. Indoors, your phone is rarely anywhere near peak brightness. Outdoors, yes, those peak numbers matter, but only in short bursts. Staying at those levels constantly would hammer your battery, heat up the device, potentially reduce old panel lifespan. Over time, that's the part these leaks skip. Physics. To hit unprecedentedly high brightness, manufacturers have to juggle power draw versus battery capacity, heat management versus thin and light design, OLED panel longevity versus headline grabbing specs. When Bell reportedly struggles to meet Apple's targets, that doesn't necessarily mean Apple wants to double your brightness. It can also mean Apple is pushing for the same or slightly higher brightness at lower power. Apple wants more consistent brightness across temperatures and use cases. Apple is tightening tolerances on uniformity and quality. In other words, the story might not be iPhone 18 melts your eyes with insane brightness, but iPhone 18 maintains the same usable brightness longer, using less energy. That's less dramatic for a leak, but a lot more realistic for Apple. Now let's talk about LTPO Plus on the iPhone 18 Pro Max and the idea of a huge efficiency leap. One report says Samsung's LTPO Plus display will bring brighter visuals, better energy efficiency, a more immersive viewing experience, longer battery life. In line with Apple's sustainability goals, here's the uncomfortable truth. Every year, marketing calls the new panel more efficient. But in daily life, battery gains are usually modest, and they rarely come purely from the display. Real-world battery improvements usually come from a mix of chip efficiency, modem optimization, softer power management, slight battery capacity tweaks. Adaptive refresh rate tuning. LTPO already lets the display ramp down to low refresh rates to save power. LTPO Plus might be a real internal label for an improved panel, or it might just be a convenient way to slap a fancy name on incremental progress. Is Apple interested in more efficient displays? Of course. Does that automatically translate into game-changing battery life for you? Not necessarily. The gap between engineered to consume less power in a spec sheet and my phone actually lasts longer in your hand is huge. Leaks love to collapse that gap. Reality doesn't. Then we get to the big silicon claims. A 2 nanometer A20 Pro chip and an Apple C-Series modem replacing Qualcomm. On paper, it's a dream spec. 2 nanometers process for higher performance and lower power. Apple finally shipping its own modem for tighter integration and seamless performance, better battery life, and cooler operation. But look at Apple's actual track record on this front. Apple has reportedly been working on its own 5G modem for years. There have been repeated timelines from analysts and leakers saying custom modem coming in 2023, then actually 2024, then more likely 2025 or 2026. Why the delays? Because modems are hard. They need to handle global carrier compatibility, complex RF behavior in the real-world, power efficiency across endless network conditions, reliability in edge cases, low signal, handoffs, carrier aggregation, roaming, etc. When Apple tried to rely on Intel modems in the past, it ended up so dissatisfied that it settled with Qualcomm and went back to their chips. That's how seriously Apple takes modem performance. So when a leak casually states A20 Pro on 2 nanometers plus an Apple C-Series modem is coming in the next iPhone, with no nuance about yield, carrier testing, or the years of iteration required, you should treat that as aspirational, not guaranteed. Could Apple debut 2 nanometers with A-Series silicon? Eventually, yes. Will it pair that with an all-new first-gen in-house modem on millions of iPhone 18 units right away? That's far from certain. Apple's pattern is very clear. New process nodes are adopted, but carefully risky. First-gen components often roll out gradually or stay in limited models. Modems, in particular, are treated with extreme caution because a bad modem ruins the entire experience. Leakers love clean spec lists. Apple loves control and stability. Those two priorities do not always line up. Now to the most futuristic claim. Under-display Face ID and a shrinking dynamic island as a technological milestone. On iPhone 18 Pro Max. This is where the marketing fantasy really kicks in. The report says Face ID will move partly under the display, the flood illuminator will be hidden under the panel, the dynamic island will shrink, making the screen more immersive. This is a careful incremental step toward full under-display sensors. It all sounds very neat and linear. Reality is not that clean.